pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please note that this meeting is being electronically recorded. First item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of the final school committee orientation sessions and the school committee meetings. So a motion to approve the school committee minutes for January 18th, 2014, January 23rd, 2014, and January 27th, 2014.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All three sets of minutes are approved. And our next item is our spotlight events around Attleboro with our school committee student representative, Max Lancaster. Mr. Lancaster, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got actually a kind of a trifecta of events for you tonight. First on the list, on February 28th, during the school day, our middle schools will be holding the second round of play in a four-pronged vocabulary bee. This year's vocab bee is the third district-wide vocabulary bee of its kind. Round one was held on January 30th at the homeroom level, where every student took a multiple-choice vocab quiz, and then the top three scores for each of the homeroom were identified, and then these students are the ones that are moving on to round two on the 28th. In round two, the top three scores of each homeroom will work as a team to accrue the most points on a written and an oral quiz, and the grade level homeroom with the most points will represent their grade in the school-wide round three vocab bee on April 9th. The vocab bee will conclude with a district-wide super bee to be held in late May, a date that's to be determined. And as of now, Brennan Middle School currently holds both the 5th and 6th and the 7th and 8th grade trophies. So we're looking for
Mr. Lancaster, am I correct that you're a Brennan?
That's correct.
Okay. We appreciate the fact
We'll,
that.
we'll leave it at that.
Sure.
Secondly, the Massachusetts State Drama Festival will be held at AHS on March 1st. This is a tri-level tournament of short plays that take place at 14 different locations throughout Massachusetts. This year, we're lucky enough to have one of these at AHS on March 1st. There are over 100 schools throughout the state that participate. 7 of these other schools will bring their short plays to the Bray Auditorium at AHS on the 1st. The ticket price for the day is $10, which allows the holder to see any or all of the 8 plays. The first play starts at 9, the final at 5:30, and then AHS's production of "And" by Alan Hanel starts at 12:15. At the end of the event, judges will select 3 schools to advance to the semifinal level, which will be held on the 15th of March, which is Saturday. AHS has advanced to the semifinals last year, and then 4 out of the last 7 years, so we're hoping for another strong performance and, of course, a strong showing for our young actors and actresses. And then the last one is on March 14th from 6 to 8 p.m., Hyman Fine will be putting on its 3rd annual Multicultural Night. The idea is that the Multicultural Night on that Friday will culminate a week-long celebration of the cultural diversity at Hyman Fine. As the children walk into school that night, they're given a passport, and they will receive stamps for their passports at different stations and activities. They will receive henna tattoos at the India table, for example, make a Hansel and Gretel puppet at Germany, play multicultural folk instruments in the music room, construct masks and piñatas in the art room, and try foods from around the world at the potluck dinner at the end. They'll also learn how to use chopsticks and construct flags from their native country. I've been told this year that this year's Multicultural Night will also feature some brand new activities, so we'll be looking forward to see what those are. The event is free and it's open to staff and families of the Hyman Fine Elementary School. I know that Miss Haven and Miss Bedrosian have worked hard to put on this event for the past 3 years, and actually in the first year, more than 700 people attended, so we're looking to continue that support this year. And that is all that I've got for you. Thank you.
No, that's a full plate, Mr. Lancaster. We appreciate it. And just a quick announcement that was passed up prior to the meeting. This past Sunday, the Attleboro High School varsity cheerleaders competed in the Hockomock League competition and earned the title of Hockomock champions. So they will Hockomock champions. So they will move on to the regionals next weekend, and we certainly wish them and all the other winter student athletes who are currently in the midst of competition well. That does include the Attleboro High School boys basketball team, which Mr. Lancaster has volunteered to serve as a student representative to the basketball game for the school committee and report back on the basketball team's progress. So, Mr. Lancaster, whenever you want to go take on that assignment, we appreciate it. Next up is our consent agenda. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $696.40 from La Parade Studio to the Thatcher Early Learning Center gifts donation line.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to accept a donation of $54 from Cartridge World to the AHS Skills USA gifts donation line.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. A motion to accept a donation in the amount of $2,071.15 from La Parade Studio to the Coelho Middle School gifts donation line.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $100 from the Feinstein Foundation to the Studley's gift donation line.
So moved. Second.
Did I say discussion?
Nothing.
All in favor?
Aye.
I still didn't say discussion, I guess. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $1,000 from the Feinstein Foundation to the Studley Gifts donation line.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. I know this is a reoccurring comment every time we have a donation from the Feinstein Foundation, but because of the important partnership that's taking place at Studley Elementary School, I think it would be important to have a presentation at some point to share with the community some of the work that's being done and what's led to that partnership and some of the benefits that the district is incurring because of it. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $100 for the University of Michigan to the Wamsutta Gifts donation line.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And pursuant to Mass General Laws 53-8, a motion to accept and forward to the City Council for approval the following tangible property item from Gene Kolarak to Studley Elementary School, one keyboard bench from the music room, which is valued at $40.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? We'll just thank Ms. Kolarak for her generosity. All in favor?
Aye.
And so all the motions on the consent agenda have passed. And we will move on to open forum, which by policy I'm required to inform you that this is a time when members of the public may address the school committee. Open forum is not a time for committee members to engage in dialogue with members of the public. Guidelines for open forum are available to you. Please know that we are interested in what you have to say, but we cannot respond without background information on your issue. So would anyone like to address the committee via open forum at this time? Going once. Okay, that will close open forum. Just a couple of quick announcements. The Attleboro High School Task Force, the flagship task force, which was approved by the school committee on January 23rd, is in the process of being put together by the administration, and the deadline for community and parent volunteers to serve on the task force is Wednesday, February 26th. And so as it was stated, I believe in Mr. Rooney's email to the Attleboro High School community, if there are volunteers, you've got 48 hours from now, unless you're watching this on tape, in which case it's too late, to volunteer and contact Mr. Rooney about that. That will do it for open forum and announcements. So we'll move on now to, we've got 3 items under new business, and the first one, school safety and emergency communication discussion. And this is, as the committee knows, just a discussion, and as the community knows, we did have a situation that played out largely in the media just prior to the February recess. The situation took place at the Hill Roberts community. The superintendent, Mrs. Scales, Ms. Sawyer, Mr. Storrs, and myself were fortunate enough to join the Hill Roberts PTO with a discussion that took place on Tuesday, February 11th. There were a number of items and comments that were made that we wanted to make sure that the committee, that the community knew that the committee took those suggestions seriously, that we value them, and already there have been some action steps taken in response to some of the concerns that were raised. So I asked Dr. McCarthy to come up briefly just to talk a little bit about some of the work that Ms. DeAngelis and herself are putting together.
Sure. Well, one of the things that the families asked for at that PTO meeting was training on how to respond to this tragedy, which really gave us pause and a second to think, how do we deal with any tragedy in any type of situation that might come up? And so Ms. DeAngelis and myself met a couple of times and really did some research on how other communities are responding to these types of situations. And we really thought at the end of the day, we need to help our parents understand how to cope, help their children cope with tragedies, because these types of situations, while this was an incident that happened at one school, it might happen in Attleboro, it might happen nationally, it might happen internationally, and it impacts our families. And our families need to know how to work with their children who are dealing with stress. So we've reached out to a team of support staff, the counselors, school psychologists, and behaviorists. And I just want to read one of their quotes in the response to me asking about doing a type of training for parents and if they could give us some guidance on this. And one of the counselors got back to me and said, "I would love to be involved. Community outreach is such an important aspect of creating solid foundations and relationships for students and parents in Attleboro, especially in tough situations." And so that, I think, sums it up, is that we need to have training and we need to build relationships for our families so that when we deal with these tough situations, we can get through them together. So what we're going to do is a group of support staff will be working with Ms. DeAngelis and myself to create a training for parents to be able to come and learn strategies on how to cope with tragedy for their families, and then also give written materials that they will be able to use afterwards if anything ever comes up. And we really picture this being a regular training that we offer, not just something that's once as a response, but something that we regularly can provide to our families. So that in a nutshell is some of the work that we've been doing.
Yeah, which is important, Dr. McCarthy, and I appreciate you being here, as well as Mr. Johnson, to share these comments with us. I think that, and I obviously invite the superintendent to comment as well, but I think one of the things that we took away from the PTO meeting was that, one, as the district acknowledged, we could have done a much better job with regard to the communication part of what took place that week. We said that that day, and we're already in the process of reviewing the policies and protocols in place to try to improve how we respond to those situations. But the other thing I think is important is that while this discussion began at Hill Roberts, it's a situation that could affect any school in any community across the country, and I think it's important that we not allow these moments to pass without seeing how can we sort of capitalize on these opportunities to become a better district and to improve communication and to do whatever we can to help our families. So I think that the program that you and Ms. DeAngelis are putting together is important. I think it's responsive to some of the concerns that we heard. And there'll be further discussions with regard to how we can improve from a communication standpoint at the policy subcommittee, which I've spoken with Mr. Withers about as our policy chair over the course of the next month. So thank you for the rapid response with regard to that.
You're welcome. And just the last point is, the other thing we've talked a lot about is we have support staff who are trained in this. They're experts in every single one of our buildings. Last year, you recommended a budget that allowed us to have school adjustment counselors in every single one of our buildings now. We have, on a consistent basis, support staff in all of our buildings that can help the staff and the families that need support in these situations. So it's our job to communicate to the families so they know who these individuals are. And then also the outside agencies. We've done some outreach to some of the counseling agencies within Attleboro. So if families need more help than what we have in our schools, we'll be able to give them those resources as well. So
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Something else that I think that the 4 school committee members in attendance, myself and Mr. Johnson, took away from the PTO meeting was the fact that it wasn't just because of this incident or whatever. Parents were generally concerned with regard to safety and security within regard to the building. And I think that was loud and clear. Some members of the committee, they were briefed on the initiatives that have taken place since July of this last summer with regard to the safety and security issues in our entire school district. Within the next 2 months, I will be making an executive presentation, an executive session with regard to security and safety measures and where we are with regard to all of the buildings in the district. And the parents are greatly justified in their concerns, and we are too. And we started this, and for the sake of keeping our kids safe, I can't say anything more than that, but it is one of the top priorities within the district is to look at all of the security measures, all of the safety measures, and all the protocols and guidelines to continue to keep our children safe within the district.
Which, as we said that day, and we'll say every other day, is always the number one priority of
Right.
the administration and the school committee. And I think, what's important to emphasize in this instance is that we had a communication breakdown. We did not have a security breakdown. We had a communication breakdown, and that's something that we need to look at and we need to do a better job with, and we will going forward. And that means not just communicating in response to situations, but anticipating situations and how can we make life easier for Attleboro School District families. And I thank Dr. McCarthy for the work that you're doing in regard to that. So, are there any other questions or comments from Mr. Weathers?
Yeah, Dr. McCarthy, I think, what you said makes a lot of sense, and one of the questions I wrote down before you answered it for me was if you're going to have written materials for the parents that aren't there. And I just think that it's important that those materials be readily available, whether it's on the district's website and Facebook pages, where parents who if something comes up, even in their family, they can say, oh, I know it's on the website, I can go get it and review it. So I just want to make sure that's something you guys have.
I
in the
agree with
works.
you completely, and it's something Ms. DeAngelis and I spoke about. We need to make sure that the materials are readily accessible and are user-friendly, and that if a parent doesn't understand the materials or how to apply them to their children, they know who to go to, who can help them. So, yeah.
Yep, a very important point. And again, while we may not be discussing this at this moment, were it not for the situation that unfolded, it's a situation that every school districts have this responsibility. The responsibilities that school districts have to their families, are growing, and I think this is one of them. We have to be able to provide materials that can help families through difficult situations. So anyway, thank you, Dr. McCarthy.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it. Next up, we have our personnel report with our Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Dave Sawyer.
Good evening. A few items on the personnel report this evening. We have 3 retirements. Claire Millette, grade 2 teacher at Willett. Gary Nelson, math teacher at the high school. And David Turney's math teacher at the high school. I also have a number of appointments. Shelley Bonomo, paraprofessional at Studley. Sarah Faziola, paraprofessional at Wamsutta. Amy Houle, paraprofessional at the ELC. Beth Ann Shedd, paraprofessional at the high school. And then 2 custodians, Robert Cerrone at Hyman Fine and Norm Dorado at Studley.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. And our next agenda item is a discussion on the transportation issues facing the district. I'd ask Mr. Rose to join the committee for that discussion. And while Mr. Rose is setting up, I believe Mr. Sheen is going to begin our presentation tonight. So,
And I welcome Mr. Rose to chime in at any time, or any member of the committee to ask any particular question that they may ask. I know that Chairman Murphy has provided you with a 14 bullet point synopsis of some of the concerns and some of the things that are associated with transportation within the district. At the same time, we have discussed this over a 2-hour period of time, but on numerous occasions throughout the course of the year, as well as ex-chairman Tyler has done since August of last year. The presentation for the committee is really to explain how complex transportation really is with regard to the Attleboro Public Schools. Transportation, what most people think of transportation, in fact, is transporting students to and from school on a daily basis. And we do that. We have hired the company of Bloom in order to lease the buses from them. And we lease 28 full buses from them. But a lot of people don't understand that we also have 11 minibuses that we, in fact, purchased and lease from that company. That in itself gives rise to a number of different policies that school committee over the years has adopted, one of which is the 45-minute policy distance from school. That's less than what the state requires you. You can't go over an hour. School committees voted to have less than that. Policies that, in fact, are enacted upon with regard to start and ending times of your schools, as well as fee-for-service, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Another piece of this, in fact, besides the fee-for-service, we look at the complexity. Now, fee-for-service as a concept is a great concept. It provides a great service to the community for people to be able to get their kids to and from school. The bottom line is that in inclement days, inclement weather days, or whatever, it allows our kids to take buses and parents not to have to bring them in, especially if they weren't able to do it and they didn't want to send their kids who ordinarily would have to walk to school. And they pay a nominal fee to do this. The amount, in fact, does not pay for the entire show. However, my recommendation to the committee in looking at this policy in the policy committee, school committee subcommittee, is to look at a cost-benefit analysis of what exactly does fee-for-service cost the district. And we know what the benefits are, but we have to make decisions based on what is the cost in relationship to the benefit to our families as well. Another piece of this is, in the complexity of transportation, is the Attleboro Public Schools transportation fleet in itself. We have 2 special education handicap buses. We have 6 buses that transport students out of district. We have one bus for transporting students to and from Tri-County Vocational School. We also bus students to special education alternative placements, and we do some district-wide field trip transportation, and we do some transportation runs. It's one other facet of this thing called transportation.
I think we had a question on this side.
Okay.
I missed the hands.
Well, that's okay. I didn't know if you want us to interrupt you with questions now or wait till the end, whatever.
Whatever's your comfort zone. Okay.
Just shoot up a flare.
All right. I just didn't know you were talking about the cost for fee for service of what the amount that we charge is. Is it a sliding scale?
Thanks very much, Ms. Withers. The answer to your question is we charge $150. The answer is yes, it is a sliding scale. We charge $150 for the first student, $130 for the second student, and if you give me a moment, I'll go online, I'll get the specifics, but it is a sliding scale.
Per year?
Per year. It's the Jonathan Plord, working with the transportation office, has done a good job to get a significant amount of data onto our transportation tab on our website, and the information is listed right there. There's a significant amount of good information within that transportation tab on our website. But the answer, $150 per year.
And we don't know what the cost of the district per student is at this point? Is that my understanding?
I'm sorry, ask.
We don't know what the cost per student is?
Well, we know
Cost
what
to the
we're
district, but we know
charging
what they
them.
charge them, but.
Well, here's the piece that you should know for additional information regarding that topic. Number one is that we try to estimate, we try to figure out exactly how many empty seats there are per bus. We do not hire additional buses or lease additional buses to accommodate fee-for-service. We look at the amount of seats that are available, and we open them up to the public. First come, first serve availability for those seats. What the analysis is actually for is to find out, I think there's about 350 kids, 390, Tom?
The answer, Mr. Shins, that's the data that I gave you. I have the latest and greatest data. 447 students, fee for service, 90 walkers, total 537, all on a bus.
What do you mean by that?
That is, we've got approximately 540 students who are not required. This Attleboro School Department is not required to transport these students because if they're grade 1 through 4, they live somewhere between a half mile to a mile and a half. If we've got the room, we'll transport them, but the bottom line is we're not required to transport those students. Or we'll have students at grades 5 through 12, and they live between 1.5 and 2 miles. Once again, some of the parents are concerned, I'd like my child to get a ride for various reasons. If we have room on the bus, let's get them on a bus. But the bottom line, the school department doesn't have to transport those students. And so in that mix, we've got about 540 families that submitted applications saying, I really would like my child to ride a bus. Granted, it's late. We try to get them in as quickly as we can, but we have 540 students that are now riding a bus that we don't have to transport.
So the cost-benefit analysis, when we do this for the committee, if that's your desire, in fact, is to say, okay, we had these empty seats, but what happened if, in fact, we were to reroute and rechange bus routes by which to lower the amount of buses necessary to make the runs that we are? Can we do this with less buses, which is about $58,000 a bus per year?
Mrs. Storrs?
But the drawback, of course, is right now we have some buses barely making the 45 minutes. They're dropping the kids off right at the 45 minute. If all of a sudden you extend the route, you're extending the time. So
All of this has to be considered, Mr. Storrs, because you're exactly right. Because what also is part of that is to get the students in school at that particular time early enough to take advantage of free and reduced breakfasts or breakfast or something of that nature. So it all plays a role in some other programs that are affected by getting to school, the children in school at an appropriate time in the morning. And the more stops you have, the more kids you pick up, the longer it takes for that bus run.
Yeah, I just want to add one point, because if people are coming into this meeting halfway through this discussion, it may appear as though the committee is on the cusp of a significant consequential decision. This is a very preliminary discussion. We are spending a lot of time in this body, a lot of time in individual meetings, and I know our administrators are spending a significant, disproportionate amount of time dealing with a variety of challenges that are related to transportation. It is a crucial component of our school system. It has to be done well. It has to be done efficiently. It cannot eat up the amount of time it is amongst administrators in the school committee right now, which is why we're trying to get our arms around this issue to begin a discussion to see what is the spectrum of challenges that we're facing with regard to this. And this is just an introductory conversation that will continue in the weeks and months ahead. So, Mr. Sheehan, you continue.
So, another piece of transportation, in fact, is the regional and private school transportation, which is mandated by law, and we transport kids to Bristol Agricultural School, Bishop Feion High School, and St. John's Elementary School, and to Tri-County Regional High School. At the same time, another piece of the transportation is the outer district transportation. And the out-of-district transportation regarding special education kids who go to alternative placement, we provide that transportation. At the same time, one of the pieces of the complexity of it and a huge amount of money associated with the transportation is also the McKinney-Vento, or transporting homeless students to and from different shelters and where they're living currently. So the bottom line is that if they're living in Attleboro and they were going to school in Brockton, we have the responsibility to cost share that transportation to Brockton. If our students who went to our high school now have found shelter in Brockton and they have the opportunity to continue to go to school in Attleboro, we provide transportation and a cost sharing piece for that student as well. And these numbers grow every single year. And it's something that's very difficult to budget for because it's not a specific amount of students every single year. That changes on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis, the same as out-of-district alternative placement students at times.
Just a quick question, sorry. On the regional and on the out-of-district, about how many students are transported?
Sure. On the out-of-district, the current number is, hold on please. Out-of-district, our current number in February is 32. So that means there are 32 students that we have here in Attleboro that do not go to school at Attleboro High School, to one of our schools, but to another school. But thanks to the transportation office and the drivers and the vehicles, we do the transportation.
Okay, and
We
then
handle that.
And then for the top, the Bristol Aggie, Bishop,
I'd have to
varies.
get you those
Okay.
numbers, but I can give you one piece of information. Bottom of those are Attleboro students that go to school outside of Attleboro. Bristol Aggie, let's use that. Bristol Aggie, Bishop Feion, let's use those two schools as examples because they're very similar. The buses go out, the Bloom buses go out, they pick up the kids, the students I should say. They bring the students here to the high school. Bristol Aggie sends a bus and then brings the kids over to Bristol Aggie. For Bishop Feion, we being Bloom bus, we bring the students over to Bishop Feion.
okay.
Another piece of this also is that we have a responsibility, besides Bloom and the 28 buses and the 11 minivans and their bus drivers and monitors, et cetera, we have responsibility to our own bus monitors and our own bus drivers. And so we have our own fleet that we take care of as well, which is also an expense. With our own transportation office and the administrative oversight, we take care of the field trips, athletic runs, and we use this at times sparingly because we have a fleet that's becoming very unreliable. We have about 9 of our buses have over 200,000 miles on them. And so we know that our transportation office, in fact, provides services, as I just mentioned, field trips and athletic runs, et cetera, but we also provide the special education services throughout the extended school year or the summer program that we have as well. That's all on our shoulders, our bus drivers and our buses. A lot of times we make a decision to use a Bloom bus and lease that bus depending on how far the transportation or that field trip in fact is, or that athletic competition, because I don't want the bus to be breaking down on 95 going to Boston. Another piece of the transportation, in fact, is interesting, is that we provide transportation for our elementary and middle school 2 days a week for after-school programs. Quite honestly, I don't believe that this is near enough. I think that our students should have the opportunity to be after school at least 4 of the 5 days a week. I know for a fact that our teachers, our administrators, our community can offer very rich, thought-provoking programs for our kids. The problem is we can't get them home, only 2 days a week. This is not about enriching academics. It's not about providing extra help academically after school or anything to do with MCAS. It can, but this is about developing programs that enrich the lives of our kids, expose our children to a lot of different entities in which our community is willing to come in and do this for our kids, but we can't get them home. I don't like to see elementary and middle school age children becoming latchkey kids, going home to unsupervised homes in which parents are out there working very, very hard, when in fact we can provide something of great value for very little money. But right now, we don't have the resources necessary to do after-school programs the way they should be done in this community.
Mr. Shane, I'll just add on to that point really quick. I mean, the degree to which you've prioritized that, and I can tell when you speak about it both privately and publicly that the importance of that clearly comes from your heart, is something that I appreciate. I think that the school committee does. And I think, what people have to realize is that what teachers need to convey to students in the 6 hours and 30 minutes they have a day is it's not enough time. It's 6 hours and 30 minutes sounds like the same amount of time as it was 20 years ago, but the reality is it's not, because there's just so much more to deliver, because students are graduating into the 21st century and not the 20th. And given that, we have to look at the variables that we do have some degree of control over. One of the things that we saw in the school committee's basic agreement and all the goals that the administration and the school committee talked about at the beginning of this term was an emphasis on well-roundedness, and that we don't want to just churn, when I don't think we are, but we don't want to just churn out students who can do really well on a test. And the only way we can do that is if we look at some of these issues with more flexibility than we have in the past. So I just want to thank you for the degree to which you've identified that as something that needs to be a priority in the district.
Thank you. One of the pieces that's going to come up over the next few months, in fact, are what are the decisions administratively and school committee wise that we're going to face. And one of the things is that, in fact, we know that we have a bus driver contract. Those are our bus drivers. Those are our bus monitors. We have a huge dilemma right now with regard to an aging fleet. And what are we doing with that aging fleet? We have transportation personnel that we need to be concerned about. We also have policies that we need to look at that affect transportation within the district. And we also have an oversight with regard to administration. and this committee has heard me say this before, and we've discussed this before, and Mr. Rose and I are going to the city council meeting tomorrow night to explain some of the transportation issues and answer some of the city council questions tomorrow night. The bottom line in all of it is that Mr. Rose, in fact, is your business manager. He's your financial CEO, and he's in charge of a $65 million school department, business, operation. And how much time, in fact, as he is also the director of transportation within the district, how much time are we spending with regard to his time with an issue of transportation? So we've got to change the way by which we have the oversight administratively regarding a very complex issue of transportation and come to some solutions. The school committee, in fact, made a very, very powerful step around November or December of this last year. And that was you hired, allowed me to hire an Aspen coordinator. And that Aspen coordinator is developing the 21 different modules or platforms under the Aspen system. The very first one that's going to be developed, in fact, is the transportation one. Fixing the data, making sure we have accurate data by which we can do accurate bus runs, have an accurate amount of students that are on the buses, so we deal with the facts and not hope that we have some spaces. So that's very important that we have that, and that step has proven major for the school districts at this particular time. And we actually meet every 2 weeks in huge committees on the issue of transportation. And so Karen Pereira, as the Aspen project manager, had provided some tremendous assets to this district, and we will fix the transportation issues, every single one of them. And the last piece, in fact, is regarding the mayor and city hall. Buses, in fact, are part of capital improvement. And in fact, the capital improvement plan, we've already met with the city council people regarding the development of capital improvement and how it affects transportation. At the same time, we have to understand that last year, I sat here not as superintendent, but as a candidate for the superintendency. And that was at the June school committee meeting. At that time, the school bus problem was a $197,000 deficit problem, in which people were casting aspersions with Mr. Rose and transportation, and how didn't you know this and everything else. Of course, you have things that you don't control, such as McKinney-Vento and the number of students being placed outside the district and those transportation costs. At the same time we do this, we have to recognize the fact that the transportation budget can't be level. You can't go into a school year and, in fact, provide $7,000 less than the year before, and you already had $197,000 overage. You have to appropriate enough money for the buses in order to run this. And so that's what will be explained tomorrow night with the city council, and quite honestly, these things have in fact been discussed with Mayor Dumas and with some people from City Hall already. So
I know I've talked about it before. Homeless transportation was declared an unfunded mandate. We've received money. Have we received any money for that this year so far? No. And when we do receive that money, we offer it back to the city because they pay for transportation.
The answer to your question, Mr. Tyler, is when the funds come in, and God willing, they're going to come in, because we spent $113,000 in FY13, and our hope, when I say our hope, school committee's hope, city council's hope, is that a good portion of that 113 we're going to get back. But the bottom line is, when the money comes in, it's going to go directly to City Hall. Then City Hall will go ahead and they're going to, hopefully, they're going to use, if the funds arrive, some or all of that to help fund our request for $170,000. So the answer is the money goes directly to City Hall, and then City Hall will go ahead and disperse. But so far, no money has been distributed.
It's okay. So, I mean, doesn't it make sense moving forward that we put it in the budget the number that we have this year, add an extra 5%, 10%. Because we realistically, we know we're probably going to reach those numbers, even though there's no certain criteria that we're going to need that much for homeless person.
I'm glad. Oh, is it okay if I just continue this conversation?
Absolutely, Mr. Rose.
All right.
I'd much rather you answer these questions than me, as a matter of fact.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Tyler, everything that you're saying makes perfect sense. The easiest way to sum up this situation, last year we spent $113,000 in homeless transportation. For that $170,000 projection, that includes $250,000 homeless transportation. So we're talking about a huge increase projected in homeless transportation. This year, the numbers are through the roof. So the bottom line is, when the budget got built by me for FY15 or for FY14, I was thinking, well, maybe 113, maybe 120. Frankly, I wasn't even close. I never expected the launch in the numbers. We ended, I've got the data here, that's why I brought the computer to the table. We ended the fiscal year in June transporting 20 students. In September, we started with 24. Now, over 80 to 90. And the number changes every day.
Okay. Mr. Rose, the administration has been asked to put together a detailed report to the school committee, sort of expanding upon all of these issues. This is a very good start. I think it's an important start. It's a start that was necessary to start this discussion. When that presentation or that report comes to the school committee, what we'll really need is for those issues to be investigated to the degree that the administration can. Sure. A 400% increase in that student population, tragic for other reasons, seems like an anomaly to some extent. And so if it is the case where decisions have been made at other levels of government that are having a disproportionate impact, while the school committee, the central administration, and the municipal government may not be in a position to adequately respond, we need to know the reasoning behind that type of increase, so that way we can advocate effectively to levels of government that can have an impact on that. Okay, so I think that's extremely important. This is a report to the school committee that will have to have some meat on the bone in terms of understanding exactly what is leading to these issues. Because 20 to 84 is, a ridiculous spike, but we've got to get to the bottom as to exactly what led to that. Okay. I think it was Mr. Withers was next.
Yeah. If we went from 20 in June to 84 in September, we had to have known earlier than now that we're going to be facing a serious budget issue. So I guess my question is, if it was September where we had all these high numbers, why is it just coming up now that we underfunded it? I would have thought we would have known this months ago.
Sorry for the confusion. September, we had 24 students. We ended September, we started off September with 24 homeless students. In February, almost 4 times that many. Specifically October through February. And it just keeps, to say that the increase is gradual is an understatement. So to answer your question, Mr. Withers, the projection, when the budget, heck, we're building the budgets right now. Mm-hmm. When the budgets get built for transportation, and we're gonna build them over the next few weeks, they get built based on the actuals that we have in that existing year. Specifically, in this case, it was FY13. And we started off pretty good at 24. Mm-hmm. The spike has been significant.
I think Ms. Singer and then Mr. Storrs.
Okay. Just to continue that.
Yes.
You didn't go from 24, though, to 80. So when you hit, 44, was there some sort of, I think that's kind of what we were trying to get at, where, it's all of a sudden you go from this to this, and now it's a big chunk of, a deficit, as opposed to, when we hit 40, should we have been looking at that and saying, where are we going to go from here?
Sure. And the answer is, what I look at is the data that's in Munis, specifically the invoices that we're receiving, the obligations that we have in place, and the encumbrances that we have set aside. And the simple reality is this: between the 11th of December and the end of January, there was a significant amount of activity that went in to that homeless area. So up through December, up through the second week in December, based on the data that we had in Munis, based on the purchase orders that were in there, the invoices that we were paying, things seemed to be going fairly well. But once we turned around and we got into mid-December, through Christmas and then into January, that's when we started receiving a significant number of the invoices, and that's when, in front of that's when the projections went up. So that was really the time frame for the spike.
So, can I continue? So just something Mr. Sheehan said about that, you're going to put things in place so that some things will never happen again in this. What are those specific things?
The district as a whole has had very poor accounting of what children are on what buses and creating those lists. We haven't had a very good student information system in place consistently in the district K-12. You've had a system that has been underutilized or wasn't utilized appropriately in the past 7 years. We now have taken that same system in Aspen, purchased a person that knows how, or hired a person that knows how to create the programs within that system, create those platforms and modules by which to now provide the accurate data in every single school with regard to every single child. That data now can go directly, not to our transportation office, but go directly to Bloom, by which can be utilized, and so it's not touching 5 or 6 people's hands before in fact it gets to Bloom, by which it's then submitted into their computer called Bus Boss, by which to make the runs and chart what are those bus stops and how many buses do we actually need to have, instead of coming in October, November saying, oh, we need to add another bus because it's getting to the schools later than we really need it to be, so we have to add one. Those things will not take place any longer. We will have accurate data by which to know how many buses we're going to need, what are those stops going to be, and who's on the bus to begin with. So they've known this.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you want to?
I just, one more thing, sorry. So just to that same, I can't imagine that we're the only district that has transportation issues. So what do other districts do? I would just, in the meat of what you were asking for next time, what are other like districts doing that maybe we're not?
I sit with 17 superintendents at BICO collaborative meetings. The issues come up all the time. These are, as Mr. Tyler says, these are unfunded mandates. They are crippling districts with regard to the transportation cost for the McKinney-Vento Act, as well as out of district, et cetera, to the point that they're looking at different ways by which to transport. But remember, it's a delicate balance, because you try to put more kids on the bus to make that route one route instead of 2, but then that means those kids are on the bus for an hour instead of 45 minutes or longer. So there is a balance, because those kids are leaving our district no matter which way you cut it.
Thank you. Mr. Storrs, and I want to go back to these comments in a moment, if Mr. Storrs and Mr. Withers wouldn't mind. Mr. Rose, let's hold our transportation discussion in abeyance for the time being.
Sure.
We have some special guests that I'd like to invite up to the table, so if you could either move to the side or...
Absolutely.
Either way. Joining us tonight are the president of Bristol County Savings Bank, Patrick Murray, and Michelle Roberts, also from Bristol County Savings Bank, who the regular viewers of the school committee probably recognize these two, and usually they're giving us something. And at some point, maybe we'll find a token gift to give to them, like a Attleboro sweatshirt or something. But the partnership that's been formed between the Attleboro School District and the Bristol County Savings Bank is as important as any partnership that this school district enjoys. And you've helped us make great strides in a variety of areas, and certainly the committee and the administration will comment momentarily, but the degree to which you have made a difference in this school district really defies words. So, and I know you have, as always, you haven't come empty-handed tonight, which we appreciate, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Sheehan perhaps to introduce this contribution.
We're almost in the month of March, and I promised that maybe December or January we would get together. It was a thrill for me coming from outside of the district to become the superintendent in Attleboro, to think of what the community cooperation and the community spirit is, and for the Bristol Community Savings Bank and for people such as this business to contribute and donate $20,000 to the Attleboro Public Schools is an unbelievable thing that I'm not used to. So I took my time like a little boy in a candy store saying, $20,000, what do I do with this? And so I polled a lot of people. I had a lot of meetings around this as to how do we take this money, how do we showcase Bristol Community Savings Bank, but at the same time put it to the best use. So consequently, we know that almost single-handedly the evening adult school program has survived because of your generosity and your company. To expand upon that, I wanted to make sure that our high school students during the day, our students who remain after school, our students who are in evening programs, were going to benefit from the same amount of money or technology. So we had purchased computer cots by which all of our teachers during the course of the school day, as well as all of the students in the programs that are going to be utilizing this technology, as well as the students that remain after school to be able to utilize this, as well as the initiative that you started and funded with the evening school activity, would be able to enhance their development, enhance their education. And I'm internally indebted to Bristol Community Savings Bank and what you've done for the Attleboro Public Schools. I thank you so much.
Thank you for your kind words. We really appreciate that. But the city of Attleboro and the school department has been very good to Bristol County Savings Bank as well. And as a community bank, especially as a community bank that doesn't have any stockholders, we really look at the community being the stakeholder in Bristol County Savings Bank. So this is just a small token of what a community bank really should be. And we're very proud to give you the $20,000 tonight. Just want to say, I want to apologize for being a couple minutes late tonight.
You never have to apologize for coming in. Come in with a check that size.
But
really,
we came in the wrong door. We actually walked into the evening school, so we were able to
You
see.
didn't give them the money
we were
back.
able, no,
They tried to take
it. But we saw some of the students that were either in the credit recovery program or in the evening diploma program. And then, as you know, for the last year or two, we've also been very involved in the AP program as well. And then there's a heck of a basketball game going on there down the hallway.
you
so
catch the score as you walk by.
I think you were down 9. But,
That's not true. That's not good.
So once again, thank you for what you do for Bristol County Savings Bank. We want to thank the city of Attleboro for what it does for Bristol County Savings Bank, and we gives us great pleasure tonight to present the check for $20,000 for your technology project.
Mr. Sheehan, if you could accept the check on behalf of the committee.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You too. Thank you.
And I'll,
Michelle, come over this side. You're next. Steve can invite us to lunch tomorrow.
Good.
Nobody wants to be in the back.
Thank you. I've gone home on many occasions with the real check in my pocket, so I'm going to make it right now.
Our business manager's right there.
Right there you go. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm sure he appreciates both the check and the interruption. So, do any members of the committee want to add any comments, or we can speak to the community while Mr. Sheehan works on more money for us, hopefully. Mr. Withers?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Bristol County Savings Bank. I think the school department as well as the city is lucky to have them as a community bank. They do a lot for the community and the schools, as anyone who reads the paper or who, is out and about in the community knows. So thank you very much.
Dennis Kelly, as you know, remains the chairman of our charitable foundation. He is probably just about now giving up his two-year term as the chair of the Attleboro Y, so he apologizes that he could not be here tonight.
Well, Mr. Kelly's been on many occasions, and just if you could just pass along to him again the committee's gratitude for all the contributions. We know that the contributions of Bristol County Savings Bank predated the existence of the Attleboro Evening Diploma Program. We also know that the Attleboro Evening Diploma Program would not exist without the generosity of the bank. So as you've witnessed for the part of the discussion you've seen tonight, the types of challenges that school districts are facing are growing seemingly by the day, and it's only with these types of partnerships are we able to provide the educational experience that the Attleboro School District families expect, and so we will not lose your phone number. We will be in touch and see how our relationship can grow. And what I would say, and I know, Mr. Murray, you attend every year the Attleboro Evening Diploma graduation ceremony, which is really one of the highlights of the spring calendar in the school system. And that is always a great opportunity for you to see what the contribution has turned into. And I think what we'll make a point of doing in the coming months is we'll find a way to exhibit for you where this money is going and be able to demonstrate some of the work that's being done because of it. So I don't know if it'll be at a ceremony or if we'll just invite you back to a school committee meeting, but we'll make sure that you have the opportunity to see the sort of fruits of the work. So thank you again. Thank you very much.
We're pleased to be your partner, and we promise to remain partner with the Attleboro School Department. You guys have done a wonderful job. When we go to the Evening Diploma Program, that is one that you can just actually see the money at work and the dollars at work, and it's just such impact. It's so impactful throughout the community. So it's wonderful.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right, Mr. Rose, come on back up. We'll,
Joe, do you want to take care of the motion?
Yeah, we should probably do that, Mr. Story, since if we want this to count. A motion to accept a donation in the amount of $20,000 from Bristol County Savings Bank to support innovative teaching practices, expand educational offering for all students, and to provide additional opportunities for at-risk learners at Attleboro High School through the use of technology.
So moved.
Second.
And we'll do a roll call vote. Mrs. Zito?
Yes.
Mrs. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, yes. Mrs. Scales?
Yes.
Mr. Tyler?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Withers?
Yes.
Mr. Stores?
Yes.
And thank you again to Bristol County Savings Bank, and we look forward to many more years of a constructive partnership with them. Back to transportation. Mr. Stores.
Thank you. If we look at a 5-year, have we done trending analysis of, say, 5 years or even 10 years regarding the cost for transportation? Has it significantly increased year after year after year, or has there been periods of flatness?
The answer, Mr. Stores, is no, I haven't done a 5 to 10 year analysis. That's a good idea. It's something I should do. But what I can tell you is that the transportation costs between FY12 and FY13 weren't significantly different. And I know I've said this before in the form of in the cover letter, but the two primary drivers with this FY14 transportation budget is what Mr. Sheehan said a few minutes ago. Out-of-district transportation costs and homeless transportation. In the past, those were more stable than they are this year.
Okay. Mr. Withers?
Yeah, I have a couple concerns based on the discussion that we're having. I think my second concern stems from my first, and I guess the first is a little bit maybe the tone that the discussion's taken, that the city didn't provide us the money that we needed. And I think my concern is this, is that we've talked about for the last couple months, and I know we've all talked in private before we were elected, that the relationship between the city and the school department is important. Budgets are getting tighter. I know we've worked on having a better line of communication with them, so that when we go to present our budget, they understand what we need. And I just have a little bit of concern with it's there just because I'm having a little bit trouble following it, I think, and that's when this $170,000 deficit and, more importantly, the homeless issue became apparent, because Mr. Rose, you indicated that it was, a gradual thing, a gradual progression, but then I think when you responded to Ms. Singer's question, it was up until December, it was fine, and then the December invoices came in, and all of a sudden we have a $170,000 deficit, or that all came about over 1 month, or is that, that just doesn't seem gradual, I guess.
Good point. Maybe I used the wrong word. Maybe to use the word gradual was an incorrect word. But the answer to your question, it was with the development of the January report. The school committee gets reports. Whenever the transportation report gets updated, you get it. And so, and I realize that several members of the school committee, you didn't get on board till January. But if you were to go back and look at the reports through December, there really wasn't anything that was super significant. But then going from December to January is really when the increases started. But the reason, there are two separate issues here. Issue number one is this: where the spike in expenses occurred in Munis was from the December to January timeframe. However, if we go back and we look at the spreadsheet and we look at all the invoices that came in, it's easy to see that it really was gradual. It's just we had approximately a 6 to 7 week time frame where there wasn't anybody working. Frank, we had an individual that left. No one filled that slot for 6 to 7 weeks. So in that 6 to 7 week period, maybe invoices were coming in. They probably were. But what we know for sure is that there weren't purchase orders being turned around and put into Munis. So I say to you it's a spike because if we look at the Munis data, there's no question it's a spike. But if we were to turn the page and say, okay, well now let's look at the invoices. And when did the invoices come in? And the number of students who were actually being transported, I think we would see that was gradual. It's just for approximately 6 to 7 week period, specifically mid-November through December, we didn't really have the personnel that we really needed within the office, within that office.
Okay, so I think we've got two different issues that are being discussed here. One, the population went from 20 to 84. That is not the responsibility of anyone on the school committee or in the administration. That was a very unfortunate reality that occurred. Again, we need to know why, because in that report we have to be able to get an understanding as to what led to this. But the second point is that we had a gap in our internal controls that led to a delayed awareness of this issue. And I think, to Mr. Withers' point, that isn't a part of this narrative that we can't be ignored. I mean,
agreed.
And I know that the superintendent and I have spoken about it. I know the mayor and the city auditor have spoken to the administration about it. There was a memo that the city auditor communicated to both the municipal council and the school committee, and I fully expect that will be part of our discussion tomorrow night before the city council, as it should be, because that lack of internal control is an issue that we, on the school side, need to hold ourselves accountable for. And so I don't want, although the bigger issue is the fact that we have what seems to be an uncontrollable escalation in the number of homeless students that results in the existence of the deficit. It's also true that we have a responsibility to make sure that those notifications are timely, and in this instance, we did fall short of that. So I don't want to leave that part out of the discussion, although it is unfortunate. Mr. Larson and then Mr. Storrs.
Just a couple comments. Having been at both the November and the December finance meeting, I know when we looked at the spreadsheets, things looked okay. We know, obviously, that we had a personnel gap issue. So if the person had been there, I think we would have seen some of those numbers start to be there. So I think the other thing we have to remember is on a monthly basis, since at least the beginning of the school year, the Finance Committee looks at the bus transportation report. It comes to this body then sends it to City Hall. So supporting what Mr. Sheehan said, City Hall's been seeing the numbers on a monthly basis, no different than we have. I mean, we share the same report with them. So, I mean, as the fall progressed, we were all seeing the same numbers. I think, had the person been there, we might have been having this conversation back in January instead of February, because we would have seen it in December. I don't think the person leaving and the person not being here for 6 weeks would have changed anything. I mean, the fact is, we are still obligated to move all these children. We're still obligated to move these students. We would have maybe known 5 to 6 weeks earlier. That would have been nice. In hindsight, it still doesn't change where we are right now. The facts being what they are. And not to say that I don't think that you can predict the future, Mr. Sheehan. I think this time next year, we will most likely be having the same conversation, as much as we don't want to, about special ed and McKinney-Vento, because they are two aspects of a very complicated system that no one in this room, no one at City Hall, no one on the face of the earth has control over. And we never will. We can try to budget appropriately, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's going to be a best guess by a couple people in June as to what we think is going to happen in the next 12 months. We could miss low, we could miss high. It'd be nice to miss high for once, but it's hard to miss high in tight budget times. So, I mean, with all due respect to the fact that we did miss a person for 6 or 7 weeks, some invoices didn't get put in the system, I think we'd still be right where we are. We just would have been there a month earlier. So I think, just to kind of put in a different perspective, in a different light.
Oh, a very good point. Mr. Storrs.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Look, going from the 24 to the 84, we can't control that. But let me ask you this. What is the process by which a student that meets these guidelines would get added to the transportation?
I'm going to give you some information, but I will tell you that a person knows a heck of a lot more about this is not here, and that person's Joan DeAngelis. But the answer to your question, DSS is the trigger. Okay. DSS contacts the school department and notifies us, we have a student, this is the status. Could be one of two things. Most of the students living in Attleboro, but the school of origin for that child might be in Mansfield or Foxborough, meaning the child was in Mansfield or Foxborough, and then the child became homeless and had to move to Attleboro, so we have a responsibility to transport that child. But the answer is DSS is the trigger, DSS informs us, and it's at that point where the office, and when I say the office, I'm really referring to two people, Joan DeAngelis and Colleen Jeffrey. They jump through hoops as quickly as they possibly can to try to get transportation for this particular student so that that student can get to school and get some stability in his or her life just as quickly as possible. But DSS is a trigger.
So over the course of the year, DSS contacted us 60 times through those individuals saying, we have a new student 60 times. So how would we be able to, going forward, initiate those people to trigger it to you, to Mr. Sheehan, to us, that we're having this kind of increase? Because it sounds like you're basing everything on invoices, and I get that. Your office is all about invoices. It's all about the money. And I understand we had the gap of 6 weeks for somebody who would tell you about the invoices. But if you look at it from the people side of things, that could have been another place where information could have been obtained, that we are significantly increasing. And again, the problem still would be there, but that information would have been there sooner.
Correct. And Mr. Storrs, the answer to your question is part of that solution is already in place. And part of that solution is this. Give me a spreadsheet and show me all the invoices we've received by vendor. And that's great that we have all the invoices through January. Great that we have all the invoices through the middle of February, knowing that in many cases the vendor's going to be 25 to 30 days behind. Now, let's take all those invoices and let's be conservative. Let's assume that every single one of these students, unfortunately, we're projecting is going to remain homeless through the balance of the year. What do we really think we're going to need for these vendors, for these purchase orders, through the balance of the fiscal year? That's been done. Now, it's going to continue to get updated because it's changing every day. But that's been done, and that's one key thread that we have been using and we are using in regard to what we think we're going to need for 30 June, specifically taking our existing population.
Did we spike with that number in December? And so adjusting accordingly. I think that information would be very helpful and useful in building a budget for years to come.
Sure. Just a quick response.
Sure.
For your information, school committee in FY12, we spent $124,000. FY13, we spent less than we did in FY12. We spent over $10,000 less in FY13 as compared to FY12.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and I'm very, very glad that I didn't take that $11,000 decrease and say, you know what, we're gonna put in a homeless transportation budget for about $103,000.
Doesn't sound like that would have been good.
No, wouldn't have been good, which is not what happened.
And I think the important point that Ms. Singer brings up, and I think it's true for all the comments, Mr. Storrs and others who have said this, that we want as much context as possible. And
Correct.
part of what trends give us is context.
Agreed.
It's also important that we take into account all the things that the superintendent spoke about tonight in the presentation, that this is a very multifaceted, multidimensional challenge that the district faces. Some of those variables are changing rapidly. Some of them are very unpredictable. Some of them are tied to our educational objectives and need to be prioritized in ways that they weren't before. This is not easy. This isn't something that we're going to fix tonight or tomorrow at the City Council, but I think it's important that we begin the discussion so that we can get a greater understanding as to the issues and what our options are going forward. So thank you, Mr. Rose. In fact, why don't you stay up because we're going to be getting to the Finance Subcommittee report shortly. Mr. Sorr, if you want to join us as well. We have our subcommittee reports being brought to us by our subcommittee chairs, shortest of which is our policy, I think anyway, unless Mr. Withers has some surprises for us. Our policy subcommittee report from Mr. Withers.
No, I've spoken enough already. The policy subcommittee is going to meet on March 2nd, March 12th at 7 o'clock. We already have a few things on the agenda that we know we'll be talking about, high school handbooks, school handbooks, excuse me, and some of the issues that have arisen as a result of the situation at Hill Roberts. So should be a good meeting.
Set your calendars. Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee report, Ms. Singer.
We had our first meeting February 4th where we discussed two issues, the first of which was the high school advanced coursework prerequisites, which was the next step in the evolution of the Honors AP program. We discussed in that criteria, grade maintenance when a student is in the program. We also discussed an appeals process if the student felt they wanted to or needed an appeal process. So basically it was just a discussion. The next step will be to go to the policy subcommittee to have those changes put in the handbook for the next school year and implementation of it for 2015-16. If any of that information is not correct, let me know. The second issue is elementary school report cards. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is looking to have the report cards placed into Aspen 2014-15 school year, is that right? And so there's been a lot of discussion kind of offline in parent groups about the elementary school report cards not having much value in terms of what progress your child is truly making. And so the administration thought this was a good opportunity to amend the report card. And so a group's going to be put together of teachers to do that and hopefully have a draft of it by the 2014 school year. And then feedback will be gathered by parents and teachers and tweak it if it need be. Is that?
Yeah,
accurate?
that's-
Okay. Our next meeting is March 11th at 7 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Singer. Mr. Shin.
I might add that your new Aspen project coordinator, Karen Pereira, also in fact assisted and developed an elementary standardized based report card that in fact was adopted by the Department of Education. And so she will play a major role with the adoption or the creation of this and then placing it into the module and platform into Aspen for a smoother transition and for parents' access to that information.
Thank you.
So it's
And,
one of those, the other platforms beside the transportation one. Then we've only got 17 to go after that.
Right. And they can design others
Does-
after that,
right.
I think, right?
Right.
So, sounds like she'll be busy. And last but not least, our Finance Subcommittee Chair, Mr. Larson.
Finance Subcommittee met on the 12th of February. Spent a lot of time talking about the facilities and reviewed the financials at the meeting. Talked about the pool, the update. We reviewed the bid timetable for the additional work that's going to be done. that process is underway. We've got the bids due back within a couple weeks, I understand.
Yes.
And so we'll be reviewing those. There's a timetable. So hopefully, with a little luck, by the end of March, we'll be hopefully back working at the pool, if my memory serves correctly. Is that?
Ms. Larson, the answer is yes, and I'm hoping it'll be quicker than that. Right now, the bids are due for Tuesday, March 11th. We're hoping that we'll have an award sometime later that week, notification to the awarded vendor or to the winning vendor, and that vendor will be able to start, hopefully, St. Patrick's Day. And we can get this project started and as quickly as possible and get it fixed and get it done.
Well, I'll keep our fingers crossed. Mr. Murphy.
I believe we had discussed at the finance subcommittee, or we discussed somewhere, the opportunity for the school committee to take a quick tour of the natatoriums.
Yes.
I don't know if we had talked about that being tonight. It didn't happen because there was a labor relations meeting that had to take place. But it may be the case that we'll schedule that before our March 10th meeting and just convene down in that area and then move our body over to 170 AD. So if that was supposed to be tonight.
I don't believe we set a schedule.
It was not the answer. You're right, Mr. Larson. We did not set a specific date, but
No,
it's a good
we
idea.
will now. We'll say March 10th.
March 10th. Okay, great.
We did talk at great length to some additions and some changes that we need to make in reference to the track and field complex that was completed last fall, and some cost adjustments that we need to make. So there are two motions. They were both approved at the Finance Subcommittee meeting to bring forward to the full committee. So I'm going to read the first one. Motion was made and seconded to send to the full school committee the approved of the amendments to the EA listed contract. You all had copies of the contract sent to you. Really, this slight adjustment in the pricing to account for some different work to be done. When the contract was originally awarded, we didn't have the track and field complex that we currently have. And because of the additional plantings and some of the other maintenance that makes the place look great, there's consequently some maintenance that we want to add to the list and contract so that the place continues to look as good as it does now. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend the list and contract.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 9-0. And the second motion, and this is in reference to some work that was done around the high school and around the track, again for the presentation of the facility as it is that we didn't have before. So there's a budget transfer that Tom would like us to approve, and this is to, let me read it. A motion was made and seconded to send to the full school committee for approval a budget transfer of $75,000 from the health insurance line in the administration, other expense, maintenance, ground contract services, and maintenance and ground supply lines as requested by the business manager. And I believe you were given a copy of this in your packet. So I'd like to entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second? Okay, any discussion, any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Passes 9-0. Our next meeting will be March 5th, 7 o'clock in this room. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. That concludes the public portion of our meeting. I'll make a motion to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. The school committee will not be convening an open session subsequent to the executive session.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Zito.
Yes.
Mrs. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Larson.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, yes. Mrs. Scales.
Yes.
Mr. Tyler.
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer.
Yes.
Mr. Withers.
Yes.
Mr. Storrs.
Yes.
Public meeting is adjourned.